The aliens on Earth in the year 2025, radical terrorists bombed the US for the fourth time, killing over 14,000 people. In response, the US government restricts constitutional rights, arrests all Middle Easterners, and, as revenge, bombs Iran and Syria, killing hundreds of thousands of people. By the year 2027, the US has transformed itself into a high-tech, semi-racist military police state. It has 8 million citizens incarcerated, and travel into or outside the country is forbidden, except for army personnel and high-level governmental authorities. Anyone crossing the borders is shot by the Border Patrol. In addition, there are random searches of citizens' homes for Middle Easterners. Bombs, drugs, guns, suspicious activities, protesters, and weapons. 2 years later, the terrorists nuke Manhattan and Tel Aviv simultaneously. Oil is a very precious commodity to Russia, the European Union, China, India, and other nations. Fearing that there will be massive retaliation by the US and Israel against Iran, Syria, and Saudi Arabia, they unite against the US-Israeli alliance and threaten to use their combined nuclear arsenal against them if they unilaterally nuke or occupy any oil-rich Middle Eastern country. A few months later, it is revealed that the nuclear attacks were masterminded by and financed by a chubby, vegetarian racist tycoon living in Russia, nicknamed Goldfinger. The Russians refused to surrender Goldfinger to American authorities. The threat of nuclear world war keeps a fragile peace for 10 years. On June 16, 2036, at noon, in the center of New Delhi, India, out of nowhere, a large flat object appears and hovers 150 feet above the ground. Within hours, the city is evacuated. Helicopters circle it looking for alien life, but none is found. After a few days, scientists summon the courage to climb atop the object, but again, nothing is found. Then out of nowhere, 5 aliens, human-like creatures with giant heads, broad shoulders, and long, strong hands appear. Their hairless heads are twice as large as humans. After communicating using a kind of impromptu sign language, the scientists escort the aliens off the object. The 5 aliens are quarantined. They seem just as curious about humans as humans are about them, and are very cooperative with the scientists. When the scientists want to take blood and urine samples, they agree to cooperate, provided that humans reciprocate and give them samples as well. They are especially fascinated with human hair. The scientists cooperate with the friendly aliens and give them hair samples. The results of the scientists' analysis of the alien DNA indicate that the DNA is of human origin and that the 5 are siblings. After a couple of days, upon the insistence of the aliens, they are allowed to return to their floating object with the human hair they had collected earlier. Then they disappear. The 5 human slave pets return to the Huawei spacecraft. They have successfully accomplished their mission to collect fresh human DNA for human farming on Hu. After a couple of weeks, the 5 aliens return back to Earth. They have been set free by their Huawei master. They are extremely happy to be away from their master and live free on Earth. Within 3 weeks, they learn Hindu, Chinese, English, and Arabic. For their hungry brains, memorizing a few million words is a snap. The 5 use their superior intellects to solve major human problems that have plagued the Earth for ages and make life better for everyone, especially for the poor. They visit all the major countries, including China, Russia, India, Indonesia, and the USA. They win over the hearts of the people of the world and are greeted warmly everywhere they go. Always accompanied by world leaders, the aliens are greeted with signs of welcome and "we love you." Some people believe them to be angels sent from God. Others see them as the reincarnation of Buddha. Some see them simply as kind-hearted, super-intelligent aliens. The world leaders take the aliens on tours of all kinds to show off the wonders of their countries. However, the sights that the aliens want to see most are the sights that the world leaders want to avoid showing: the slums, the ghettos, the prisons, the interrogation rooms, the biochemical labs, and the animal meat factories. They especially insist on visiting animal farms and slaughterhouses. They want to see if humans treat farm animals any better than whites do humans. To their distress, they discover that humans are also very abusive, cruel, and insensitive towards the domestic animals they raise for food. Fight for animal rights. The aliens are struck by the incredibly miserable life of farm animals on Earth. They learn that automated meat factories chop off billions of chickens' beaks mechanically to prevent chickens from pecking each other to death in their crowded cages. They learn that billions of farm animals are raised in tiny cages to keep their meat tender and rich in fat, and to reduce the cost of food production in meat factories. This greatly disturbs the aliens as it mentally catapults them back to Hue, where billions of humans in Hue-white meat factories are crammed in tiny cages and having their fingers chopped off to enhance their brain's taste. Since they have double the brain, their emotions are also double. They cannot help but constantly agonize, sympathize, and empathize with those innocent, suffering animals. Animal farming makes them sick and angry and hateful. The aliens side with the rest of the world against the US and Israel. Despite this, when they visit the US, the newly elected US President, Miss Washington, greets them with great warmth and respect. She is a young, charismatic black woman who has recently narrowly defeated an overtly racist rival. The rival candidate is a white Jewish man who believes in segregation and superiority of European race, including the white Jews. Unlike Hitler, he believes that all Europeans are the most supreme race, followed by Japanese and Chinese and so on, in a hierarchical classification of all of races. Race is based on intelligence. According to his ideology, Arab violence and terrorism are genetic. He advocates deportation of non-European Jews from Israel and occupation and colonization of oil-rich Middle Eastern countries. The newly elected President Washington takes the aliens to several U.S. cities, including New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Denver, and Honolulu. In every city they visit, the aliens are greeted with great affection and celebration. After spending some time with the aliens, Miss Washington develops a strong emotional affection towards the five and treats them with great dignity and respect. She senses that they are suffering from pain and depression. Indeed, the degradation and abuse they have suffered from childhood as Hue-white slave pets has left very deep wounds on their souls. Every time they see suffering or injustice, they seem to become immobilized by grief, hatred, and extreme anger. President Washington is amazed by the aliens' great intellects and their pure hearts. She listens intently to their recommendations. Their first recommendation is the hardest to swallow. Indeed, it is at first laughable, but the 5 are tenacious. Pass laws banning animal farming. They believe that unless the country passes laws defending the mute and the defenseless, the country will have bad karma and will self-destruct from within because of this evil. They do not suggest that people must necessarily become vegetarians as long as the animals live a natural, comfortable life, are well fed, are not in pain, and are not confined to cages like the billions of humans are in white meat factories.